I just want to thank Father Carl and Sister Mary for having me here. My four-legged friend is Annie. I don't know, Jennifer, if you ever met Annie. She'll be 9. She's a Maltese dog. She's always there. She's happy to see me. She's really cute. I have to apologize because I don't have everything memorized, and that's just what it is, so if you could bear with me. I'm going to start off with a poem. It's called In the Quiet. In the quiet, my soul speaks, and heaven hears her beautiful whisper. In the quiet, my soul smiles, and Mary's light illuminates my path. In the quiet, my soul stumbles, and I wonder if anyone can see. I have fallen in the precious quiet, and the light begins to fade, and the noise is pulling me down. Mary, where are you? Mary, light my way. And when I think the noise is overtaken, and I cannot hear her gentle whisper, I continue. Mary's voice is always with me, even if I cannot hear my name, she does speak it. Do not believe you are forgotten. Do not listen to the lies that tell you you must turn back, do not. And when you've stumbled and the noise grabs your arms and legs, call her even louder, listen even sharper, and dig even deeper. Dare to defend the quiet, to fight the noise that's all around you, and live what you have up to now only believed. So I wrote this in November of 2012. You can breathe now. I know it's heavy. I'm heavy. It's what it is. I can be light. So I wrote this in November of 2012, and I wanted to start with it this evening because it really sums up my faith journey and my work journey. It's really been a winding path full of beautiful light and plenty of dark corners. And the poem speaks about the emotional and spiritual struggle I often find myself in while on this journey. And it also illuminates the gentle, loving whisper underneath the struggle. The arms that hold me and the strength that has saved me again and again and again. And that strength is the faith that was graciously given to me and passed down from my parents, Marge and Bill. And although I often don't know it and I can't always see it, there are periods when I'm aware of this faith in action, and I'm humbled, and I'm grateful, and most of all, I'm unburdened. And I returned to church a few years ago after being gone for many years, and it was Mary, the Mother of Christ, who welcomed me back in. And she's the loving presence that sustains me, draws me back into the fold, and unites my hands with the Father and the Son. So I'm going to use this poem a little bit to try to communicate how faith has unveiled itself to me in my work as a Montessori teacher, working with young children, and as a shop girl selling shoes. And I wore some special ones tonight. And as a pastoral counselor, integrating psychotherapy and spirituality to help individuals suffering from grief and loss. And my work isn't a little neat package, and I have kind of had a lot of shame about that. And when Father Carl and Sister Mary asked me to talk tonight, I was like, no way. No, absolutely not. I can't talk about this. I can't talk about this. I'm on my 3rd career. I work 3 jobs. I have terrible insurance. I'm not a CEO. I can't pretend to be something that I'm not. And pretend like I have it all together and I'm going to impart this on you and tell you, this is how you do it. And I loved a lot about teaching, but I got burned out. And so I sold real estate for a while, and that was really fun, but then the market crashed. And when I went back to school to complete my master's, I thought, okay, the struggle's over. But little did I know it was just beginning. Yeah. And then I met with my mentor yesterday, and I was really distraught about this talk, and I was full of fear and doubt. And I read to her my poem that I wrote a while ago, and I don't really know why I picked this one, but I did. And she said to me, and it was really wonderful, and she said, Deirdre, your faith is what has saved you. And these words broke through a wall and lifted a burden I'd been carrying around all winter. And it brought me back in line to the truth that is in me and in you and all around us. That the Lord loves us utterly and completely, and most especially in our brokenness, our wrong turns, our regrets, and our failures. And in all the good times too, of course, but being that it's been really one special winter, and we still have a ways to go, I have to speak about being loved in the cold and the darkness. And my mentor said to me, a lot of people have 3 jobs: bad insurance or no insurance, and are struggling, and they need to know and to hear that they're not alone. So I said, okay, I can do it. I knew I wouldn't have the courage to call either one of you and say I didn't want to talk, but believe me, the thought crossed my mind. So I'm going to break down this poem a little bit and use it kind of as a guide as to where faith meets work. When I look at the poem now, I look at it as a call to myself to enter more deeply into a trusting relationship with the great divine. And it's a call that never really stops. And the noise is the man-made world all around me, of bright lights and phones and disconnection. And as a Montessori teacher, the noise is quite literally the chattering of the children. You know that as parents, and the emotional drain that can be to meet their needs. So as parents, you know that far better than I do. And the noise of working in the shoe store, is the judgment or put-on sometimes that some of the women carry while I'm carrying their shoe boxes. And it's true. And if I'm not on my game, this is true too. If I'm not on my game, I accept it readily, and then I wonder why my spirit's deflated. And then there's another truth is that often it's not even them, it's me. And I'm projecting this judgment that I have about myself, and I'm holding them responsible. So, the quiet is that tender space in my heart and soul that slows down just enough to remember where I truly come from, to where I will return, and who is truly holding and loving me. As a Montessori teacher, one of my favorite experiences is playing the silence game. It's really a form of centering prayer, designed to help them learn the art of calming their bodies and their minds. So we sit in a circle, and we can do it now, but we're not in a circle, but just if you humor me, we can do it together. So I tell them I have a special game to play, and it's called the silence game. We close our eyes, and we put our hand over our hearts, and we take 3 deep breaths. Our eyes are closed, and our ears and our hearts are open, and our mouths are closed. We listen for that special gift, the gift that's inside us and all around us, the gift of silence. And then we open our eyes. And to do this it was fun doing that with you, and to do it in a room full of children in a circle is exquisite. And if I hadn't experienced it, I wouldn't think it could happen with 25 children, wild little kids, aged 3 to 6, sitting around in a circle and closing their eyes and going inward, and it's really beautiful. And when I've done it with them, I know I'm in the presence of holy souls, and I've seen a little glimpse of heaven. So the quiet means, for the quiet, when I'm working at the shoe store, it's a day when I'm sitting in the store. I work at one out. It's a really beautiful one out in Geneva. And there's a big picture window, and, well, there are 2 big picture windows, and I look out and I can see the trees, and they're silhouetted against the sky. And I look around the lovely store and the beautiful shoes, and all the things are nice, and I feel a great sense of peace and belonging. It is in this state that if a customer comes in, and I am ready to receive them. But that's if I've left the bitterness, truly, and the pity on the Eisenhower on my way out. Because otherwise I can't, and I can't see them. Like he talked about seeing God, in people. And I get in my way sometimes. I get in his way. So I may be showing them shoes and purses, but it's far beyond that. And something in them knows that I am listening, and they begin to share their stories. As they try on shoes or open up a handbag, time and time again I've experienced grace come over me and over them. Spirit is working through me, and something beautiful happens. It was at the shoe shop that I began to understand that I was a sort of wounded Catholic magnet. God, I'm like, where they're coming from.
They're everywhere.
I mean, it's true. And then sometimes, I could see that I would sometimes elicit conversation, but it would be so weird. And often I'd be working by myself. But in the beginning, I worked with this lady, Di, and it was amazing. We were like, what's going on? Because people would come in, and then I think it's so seldom that someone is actually there and can have the time to sit right in front of you and be available, and Di and I would listen, and so I became a wounded Catholic magnet, and I'd hear, I used to be Catholic, or when I was little I had faith, or I wish I could go to Mass but I can't forgive the church, and as their stories deepened, and as they deepened, their tears were shed, and their burdens were lifted, and then my burdens were lifted. And I believe this is like the essence that I talk about in the poem of Mary's Quiet, Gentle Whisper, letting us know that despite any heartache or tragedy, she's always there. But okay, let me tell you, I gotta be honest, often I can't hear her. I don't want to hear her. I want to blame the weather. I want to dig up past mistakes. This is all the reasons that I want to use how I can't see God and other people. I want to blame my sister who lives next door, or the fact that I'm not married, or I don't have any kids, or the park is going to send me over the edge. I'm going to go off at the village hall. So maybe for some of you, sometimes you might want to blame your spouse or your kids or even the church. And the truth is there's nobody to blame, and there's nothing to blame. There is no reason for blame. It's just life and work and relationships and good times and tragedies, and underneath it all is the great presence of a very real and very true God that seeks our connection. Her, I mean. I meant to say her and then I was going to say him, but I screwed it up. You got the message, right? And the Mass draws me closer, and the Eucharist draws me closer, and I'm grateful for this Catholic tradition. And as a pastoral counselor, I'm a mental health professional, and I've been trained in both theology and psychology. And I hold a master's degree from Loyola's Institute of Pastoral Studies. And I'm a licensed counselor in the state of Illinois. And I did my internship at Montgomery Place in Hyde Park. It's a senior community. And I don't know how this happened, but so I worked with young kids, and then like the very young and the very old, and I think it was more by default than really by choice, but okay, maybe God had it, fine. But so when I think about these, the very young and the very old, and by secular standards, they're like on the fringe, both of those age groups, and they aren't exactly the movers and shakers of the world, and they aren't as mobile as the rest of us, and their voices often get muffled up by the noisier, busier go-getters who get things done and don't have time for listening or being. And I would visit seniors in their homes, and many of them they're coping with the many different mental health issues that come with being a senior citizen. They've moved from their homes, they're living in Montgomery Place, and many of them have lost a beloved spouse. And they've lived full, layered lives. Some are professors, from U of C, and some were homemakers, and I remember one woman worked for the State Department during World War II. And as I look back on their as they look back on their lives, and they shared their achievements and disappointments and their relationships and in their careers, I became a witness for them. And as I listened to their stories, I began to understand that no matter what kind of job they had or didn't have, or how much money they made or didn't make, or how many children they had or didn't have, they were just like the Montessori kids and just like us. And they want someone to listen to them. They want a witness. To truly listen with an open, loving heart, and it is through this listening that their soul is affirmed of its existence, and they are reminded of where they truly come from and where they will return and who is holding them. And I believe this is the work of the Spirit. And I'm always asking God to grow, I'm always asking to grow in trust, to grow in my trust of God, and to live more regularly in that quiet space and that place of knowing. For I've got a really terrible, stubborn, and doubtful side. And I've been known to pluck my own feathers. And even in that tender space, the noise of the world still grabs at me, and I still fall. And writing this, and Jennifer, you talked about this, and this whole experience of writing about where work meets faith has been a really tremendous experience, even though I didn't want to do it. I recommend it to everybody because I do. I mean, it's been horrible, but it's been really great because it's just opened up a lot for me, and it's given me a great sense of peace. But when I was writing this poem, I felt like it was a plea to God for help, and a challenge to myself to understand that indeed faith is a gift. You know, we always hear faith is a gift, but it means nothing if I don't open it. And sometimes for me, and maybe for you, I must fight myself, although I'd like to believe I'm fighting others, to accept it and to open it and to receive it. And somewhere in that fight comes a surrender, the acceptance, the letting go, and I'm free then to receive. And because the gift is so precious and so peaceful, and there's nothing else quite like it, I know it's not of my own making. And I challenge myself to not only believe in the gift, but to live it. And it's much easier said than done. And just when I think I've got it all down, a little dose, and sometimes quite a big dose, of humility hits me in the face. And I'm mortified by my vanity, ego, and self-righteousness. And I think if you were to ask me 10 or 20 years ago if I'd be attending Mass regularly or reading about the saints or getting daily emails from Richard Rohr, not personally, but maybe. No, just his daily emails from Richard Rohr and the Daily Gospel, I would be like, you've got the wrong gal. Sorry, I'm done with the Catholic. I'm just about done with the Catholic Church, thank you. And this is how I know that faith is truly a gift and not something I've earned. I've never thought I'd be standing here talking about my work in Montessori, as working in the shop, or that I would ever go to school and become a pastoral counselor, for goodness sakes. Okay, I went to St. Giles too, and I got a lot of detentions. I did. I don't know if you know, Jennifer was a year older than me. I don't think you got any. I used to talk too much, and I had this really low voice, and I don't know, it echoed or something. So I got a lot of detentions, and I never was like a teacher's pet or anything. And the prayers were too long. They were way too long. And I remember we could go face to face. Okay, I'm just being really honest. I had to put some levity in here. I remember we had the option of going face to face or in the box. Do you remember? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to face to face. We don't have to memorize anything. We had to memorize like one prayer. So it's terrible, but it's what it was. But what happened is I see now that I had let this childhood faith, which is a beautiful thing, but I let the childhood faith keep my adult faith from growing for many years. So the seed was planted, but I became too bitter to water it. So for years I talked about a church that had no place for me. A single woman without children who was neither a nun and could never become a priest. I never got off the spiritual path, although I tried often. I even worked at the Board of Trade for a few months, no offense to anybody who did. No offense to anybody who worked at the Board of Trade. But I did for about 3 months. I hate math. I don't even know how I got the job. And I kept hoping I could shed this spiritual thing and just make some money and be done with all this soul searching. And if anyone knows me, anyone at the time knew me, it was just like a bizarre diversion. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing there? But living with one foot in the spiritual path and one foot in the physical can be an arduous undertaking. Arduous because I forget that all I need to do is get out of the way of my own self and let, as Ignatius says, love loving take the lead. And so this brings me back to the church. To St. Ignatius, to Padre Pio, to St. Catherine Labouré, and all the souls who have become my friends. And it's been through hearing their stories that I see that there's indeed a place for me, that the Lord never has closed the church's door to me, and maybe in a different era or at a different church with a different pastor and different different community altogether. Maybe they wouldn't be so happy to have me, but this is certainly not the case here. And otherwise I wouldn't be standing here before you. And Sister Mary and Father Carl and many others have been more than welcoming to me, and I can no longer use the excuse that there's no place for me within these beautiful walls. So the church is my earthly home, with its faults, with all my faults and all the humanness. When I was in graduate school, I remember I was bemoaning my grievances about the Catholic Church, trying to distance myself from its imperfection, and my imperfection, but I didn't know that. That's what I was doing. And my supervisor, an Episcopal priest, said to me, "Deirdre, you are a part of that imperfect church. It is deep within you. It is part of your whole makeup. The beauty, the tradition, the trouble, the injustice, the whole ball of wax. And it is through the process of forgiving your Catholic Church and accepting both the immense light and the grave darkness that your own healing and forgiveness will unfold." And at the time I was furious, and I think I may have walked out of his door. I do, I'm not sure, but I didn't want to hear that. Did not want to hear it. And when truth stares you in the face and offers you a way out of pity and blame, it's really hard to take that ticket to freedom. But his words stayed in my heart and in my head, and slowly through the grace of God, I began to let go of my defenses and let the Lord draw me back to my earthly home. And the process continues. I can no longer deny that a spiritual thread has been woven in me and throughout my life. I've come to understand that faith is my work. It is the work for all of us, no matter where we work or if we work. I've also come to understand that there's another thread that is woven throughout my life, and it is that of doubt. But I'm not alone, and the more I read about the saints, the more I read from Scripture and from wise people throughout the ages, the more I understand that this thread is part of the human condition. We are all both sinners and saints on a pendulum moving closer and farther away from God and back. We have an innate desire to seek and know the Lord, to experience his abundant love and acceptance for us, and at the same time we can get caught in the muck of self-doubt and unworthiness. I think that this is why it's said that we are to be witnesses to one another of God's love for us. When I can't see the light in my own life, when it's dark and murky, I reach out to another and their candle lights my space. When the light is clear to me, when I know from where I come and to where I will return, I burn my candle brightly and others rest in its light. And when I get out of the way and enter into that calming river of the Lord that only comes with trust and surrender, he becomes my candle, and it is no longer work, but grace.